It's actually wild to to think I've been doing it this long and still playing the game at this level. It's pretty cool.
Well, yeah. Well, it's been such a unique ride for you too, right? Like, you wrote. Let me get this straight. You wrote True Romance. You sold it, and you used the money from True Romance to fund Reservoir Dogs.
Well, that was going to be the idea.
Right.
All right. The idea was...
Pull this microphone up to your face.
There we go.
You can move it around so you don't have to lean into it.
Cool.
There you go.
That was going to be the idea. I was selling True Romance. I was going to get like $30,000. And I'd never had $30,000 in my life. I was a minimum wage kid. I was only like making like $150 a week, and at
a video store.
At a video store, Video Archives in Manhattan Beach. And so the thing about it was, so that was the kind of plan. Well, I finally got some money. Then I'll shoot on 16 millimeter, this thing that I can shoot in in a muffler shop or something, which was Reservoir Dogs. And I showed it to the guy who ended up becoming my partner on the film, Lawrence Bender. And he read it, and he was like, Quentin, this is a pretty good script. I mean, we could actually get real money and make a real movie. And I was like, nah, man, I've been hearing that for years. No one's going to give me money to make a movie. I haven't done shit. It's just not going to work out. It's just not going to work out. I don't buy it. Now that I've actually got some money in my hand, I'm going to do it this way and take it on the film festival circuit. And then he was like, okay, I'll tell you what. How about this? Give me 3 months. Just give me 3 months. If at the end of 3 months I can't get some interest to make it like a real movie, then I'll help you and we'll make the little home movie version. And so so I gave him he paid me $100. I gave him an option for 3 months. And in 3 months, we got actually somebody who was not the person who ended up doing it, but we got somebody who was interested in doing it. That would have given us $600,000. And then we ended up making a deal with Live Entertainment, which was sort of the home video home of Coralco, the big Rambo studio. And they gave us $1.3 million to make the movie.
When you sit back and you talk about that today, does it even seem real? I mean, that you really were working in that video store and that you really did write that? I mean, it's got to be a bizarre whirlwind adventure that your life has been.
Well, it was in a way, the working at the video store was the part that was real. Everything else was the fairy tale.
Yeah.
I kept waiting for it all to kind of fall apart. At some point, this movie that's going to happen is going to fall apart. Either it's it all falls through, or the company changes their mind, or I get fired while I'm doing it, and that's the end of that. And I had friends who had gotten some places, and then things went bad. So I kept waiting for things to go bad, but then they didn't. And then I had at a certain point, I realized, well, they're not going to fire me because the actors really love me. The actors wouldn't allow them to fire me. The actors would walk. So I go, okay, I guess I'm pretty safe as far as that's concerned. But it was more like a situation where up until 91, up until I did Reservoir Dogs, any luck that I had was either no luck or bad luck. Everything was always just a big build-up to a horrible letdown.
In your life or in your career?
In my life, my career, but probably my life too. All right, and then all of a sudden, just as bad as everything went up until that time was as good as it went for the next 6 or 7 years. It literally just, they say, pendulum swings both ways. Well, eventually, after almost my 20s, all of a sudden the pendulum started swinging the other way and everything worked out. It was kind of amazing.
Well, you're a unique guy. I mean, I don't think I have to tell you that. You have a very intense perspective on filmmaking, and the films that you produce are so uniquely Tarantino. I went to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, me and Dave Chappelle and the whole crew, Donnell Rollins. And
yeah.
We did it at 2:00 in the morning, rented out a theater after a show we did in Tacoma.
Oh, no shit. What a great way to see it.
It was awesome. Yeah, we did a show in Tacoma, and then after we did the show, we went to the theater and saw it. And while, spoiler alert, one of the most violent scenes at the end, while Brad Pitt is smashing this woman's head, I'm thinking, there's not a whole lot of dudes who can get away with this movie. Like, you're kind of grandfathered in.
Yeah, I heard you say that once before.
Because I'm like, if somebody else made this movie, I don't think they would allow it. I think that there would be massive outrage, but it's so
we
Tarantino-esque.
are talking about like 3 of the most bloodiest, violent killers of the 20th century.
Yeah.
I think like their own madness, grandfathers, their face being bashed in.
Yeah, I guess you can make that argument, but it's just, like I watched Death Proof the other day.
Yeah.
And it's another one. Like there's scenes in that movie that you're like, what the fuck? Like you have so many what the fuck moments in your films.
Right.
I mean, it's one of the things that people loved about them. You're not going to go to your film and have some, esoteric, interesting, deep, long, possibly boring movie about childhood and trauma. No, it's going to be wild shit.
Yeah.
Wild shit and gunfire and fucking car accidents and people are going to die. And they're going to die in horrific ways.
Yeah.
And that is a signature of your films, but it's uniquely you. It's like, a person can play guitar like Gary Clark Jr., right? He plays guitar and you could hear a couple licks and go, I think that's Gary Clark, or I think that's Stevie Ray Vaughan or Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
Your films are, somehow or another, you're in there. Your fucking DNA gets in those movies. How could that be stupid, though?
Well, in
it's
a sense,
just trite.
It's trite. You're not supposed to think about it. It's something you ask your parents when you're young.
Yes.
They tell you don't worry about it, or they say,
Go get a job, hippie.
Yeah, exactly. Go get a job, you freaking hippie. Or here's God. God is the meaning of life, right?
Yeah.
And so I was just trying to resolve for myself, like, what could the answer be? Right? Not what is the answer, but what could the answer be? And so at a core level, I was forced to kind of hunt down all these weird little things and really understand for myself. And it's got to be personal, right? But I have to establish for myself what it could and could not be. And that gave me some level of peace. So now I don't have to keep asking that question over.
What is the meaning of life?
I mean, I think the question is more interesting than the answer. Everyone should explore this on their own. But let me just explore a few parts with you, right? Okay. So first is, if I gave you an answer, if I said the meaning of life is to please God, well, which God? Okay, Judeo-Christian God. Well, okay, why that one? Why this thing? The problem is it's a why question. You can keep asking why forever. Right? Any answer I give you, you'll just ask why again, why again,
like
why
a little
again.
Kid.
That's right. And you end up in a place called Agrippa's trilemma. Okay, this is a philosophical exercise, but I kind of thought it through, then Googled around, and there's a thing called Agrippa's trilemma. And Agrippa's trilemma says that any questioning like this, why, will always end in one of 3 places. Okay, first is infinite regress. Right? Why? Because of this. Why that? Why that? And just keep going forever. The second is circular reasoning. Well, A. Why A? Because of B. Well, why B? Because of A. Right? You get trapped in that. Or the third is an axiom. And the most popular axiom is God. But it could be anything because of math, because of science, because of the Big Bang, because of simulation. Right? These are all axioms. These are all just stopping points. Saying simulation, we're in a simulation, or saying it's the Big Bang is just another way of saying God. It's just God's a dirty word, so we don't use it as much anymore, but same thing. So you end up in one of these 3 dead ends, essentially, right? So there is no answer. The real answer is because. Right?
What is the meaning of life?
Yeah, you get to make up your own answer is the beauty. If there was a single answer, we would not be free. We would be trapped. Because then we would all have to live to that answer. Then we'd be Borg-like robots, each one competing with each other to fulfill that single meaning more than the others. Back to signaling, like I'm better at it than you are. But luckily, there is no answer. So you just do whatever you want.
The meaning of life. It's funny that's the basis of all existential angst, that you don't
know why you're here.
And you have this feeling that it could be meaningless. It is, I mean, when you start pondering the multiverse, the universe, the galaxies, the solar system, the planet, the organism, the cells inside the organism, the bacteria, the parasites,
Right.
the symbiotic relationship we have to our environment. And you start going, Jesus Christ, what am I, just a little piece of this thing? It's like,
Well, the answers to all the great questions are paradoxes.
yeah.
So, for example, you're asking, like, do I matter? That's like really the question you
Right.
asked, right? Well, how do I matter in this infinite universe? Well, on the one hand, you're separate. No 2 points are the same. Every 2 points are infinitely different. You're completely separated. No one will have your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, your experience. So your life is a single player game. You're trapped inside your head and you're just aware of a bunch of things going on, and that's it. On the other hand, I cannot say the words Joe Rogan without invoking the entire universe. Joe Rogan, alien comes along, says, what's that? Joe Rogan. What's Joe Rogan? It's a human. What's a human? Bipedal ape. What's an ape on the earth? What's the earth? Planet. What's a planet? Solar system. Where was the carbon made? Inside stars, right? It's like I have to create the entire universe to just say the words Joe Rogan. So in that sense, you're connected to everything. It's inseparable. So the answer to that question of do I matter is I am nothing and I am everything. And you'll find this with all the great questions. The answers are all paradoxes, which is why at some level it's sort of pointless to pursue them, to find a trite answer like I'm giving. But the act of pursuing them is actually really useful, because then it gives you certain intrinsic understanding in your life that brings a level of peace.
Like, my shit stinks. Like, I'm nobody special and I'm not here to preach to anybody, but I'm telling you, like, giving things to God, for me, alleviated 99% of what, like, I had a, like, I don't know how to describe it, but when you experience, and I mean, you've done things that I haven't, like with DMT and all, and that stuff's very intriguing to me. And so I'm open-minded to all that as well. Like, I'm not, but yeah, like I had, when I kind of had this breakdown moment and decided that I was going to let whatever ego I had go, and just at this point it's like I knew I didn't have much left in for me anyway, and I wanted to serve whatever purpose it was that I was here to serve. It's like you get this just overwhelming feeling in you. I was just crying like a baby, just this very like warm feeling throughout me, and that really hasn't gone away since. Like I'm not the guy that can play in front of 12,000 people on guitar. I would be like, I mean, I had never played a paid gig. When we played the show at the farm market where Jamie Johnson showed up, that was my first paid gig. Like, I'm not a guy to go out and play live shows, but I can tell you I was so like, I was just so at peace being up there. Like, it just felt like that's where I was supposed to be. And with all of this, it has been like, there's no way that Chris from 6 months ago could handle what's gone on the last 2 weeks, but I feel just so empowered from all of it. And I don't know. I'm telling you, like, again, I'm not anybody special, and I'm certainly not here to preach to anybody, but just from coming from somebody who was just in a really just fucked up place. Like, and I use that word like with discretion, but in this case it describes like where I was. Like, that guy found a lot of peace, like, from this book and from
looking at things in a different way.
Yeah.
From looking at things through the eyes of Scripture. And
I think for me it was like I had been in, I'd been in church growing up, and I'd been exposed to all of that, but I'd found a lot of theatrics and a lot of politics in church and in religion when I was younger, and so it just immediately turned me off to it.
So if you can, take us to, like, what was like the day you picked it up? What was the feeling that you had? Like, what caused you to act? What was it like when you did it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd been reading it here and there, off and on, and I had for like off and on for a long time, like, because I was introduced to it as a kid, but it was really just like, I remember I went to the ER for everything that was going on. I mean, I thought I was seriously going to die. Like, I was having shooting pains up under my jaw, down in my wrist and my leg, like just cardiovascular 101 symptoms. Of course, I'm 31. I had been like, I could run 4 miles without stopping, no problems. Like, I knew my heart was strong, but
You
I
were
just
freaking out.
Yeah, but I went and did that, and I remember being in the truck after that, just like, and I just had a breakdown moment. I was just crying, and was just I just felt hopeless, like almost the way a child feels hopeless when they, like, you can't find your parent or something, like a 4-year-old that can't find his parents or something. I was just like, didn't have anything left in me, and I don't know. I just decided, like, right then and there, I was like, I know I can't do this anymore, but I know that I can. I know there's things that I need to do, and I I was just told God, I was like, just let me do it. Like, and I'll give all this shit up. I'll give up the weed, and I'll quit getting drunk, and I'll quit being so angry about things, and I'll just I'll just call it good. Whatever I've done up from up until I was 30 or whatever, 31, like we'll just call that good, and I'll start over again, and I'll make him the focus and not me. And I just tried to let my ego and everything that I was, just let that go and just focus on, because obviously, like, it's not just me. I've seen it with even other people I know, and I see it with celebrities and everything. But I don't know. I just feel like we're in such a weird place right now in the world that I feel like God's working inadvertently through certain people to get his point across.
So take me to what you did. Did you start reading the Bible? Like, what did you do?
I just changed my perspective.
You changed.
I quit worrying about me, and I started worrying about what it is that I'm supposed to do. You know, like it talks in the Bible about being a servant, and giving up, I guess, my desire and my will and whatever it is that I want to do. Like, I don't know the best way to describe it, but it's about trying to use what I have as a tool versus doing what I can in the moment to give myself whatever satisfaction that it is I'm trying to get. You know, it's about trying to let go of your ego, I guess, in a way. And I mean, people pursue that mentality without faith. I mean, it's the idea of there being something bigger than you, but I think inherently all human beings idolize something. Like, it talks in the Bible about false idols. We all have false idols, like whether it's our phone or it's a celebrity or it's something we do or it's our addiction to food or drugs or whatever. But like, it's very difficult for a human to be the biggest thing on their hierarchy. There's always something above us, right? Because we're always in pursuit of something bigger than whatever it is in that moment. And I think for me, it was just about taking everything else, all the distractions and all the other things in my life away, and just ensuring that at least, and look, we all sin and we all do stupid things. Like, we're all just people. Nobody's special or righteous. People sometimes act like they're special and righteous, but we're all just the same thing. Like, but it's just about trying to make that my idol. Make God and the concept of what it is that He wants done on this earth my idol versus anything else. You know, like we all serve some master, whether we realize it or not. So why not let it be the master that is above all? And
so when you made this transformation in your mind, did you then start reading scripture like regularly? Like, what did you start doing?
Yeah, well,
that was different.
Well, what really, I guess it's like now I don't read it because I feel like I should read it to be a better person. It's like now I try to read it for the guidance within it. And I'm still in the infancy stages of a lot of this. Like, I've read a lot of Psalms, Proverbs, and Ecclesiastes, and Luke, and there's other good books. But just trying to restructure, I guess, on a granular level, like, I guess the neural pathways in my brain that have certain habits and certain ways of thought. Like, I've tried to retrain that to, like there's things it says, like, and I'll be very brief with this, I promise. But like, one thing, ironically, it's Proverbs 4:20, which I thought you would like. So if there's anything better,
perfect. Read it. Preach.
My son, pay attention to what I say. Turn your ear to my words. Do not let them out of your sight. Keep them within your heart, for they are life to those who find them and health to one's whole body.
How'd you become that guy?
You know what? I grew up not that guy.
Yeah.
So a lot of people put a title on me. They want to, they see me now. They see me now as the guy that, with his shirt off, who can do 4,030 pull-ups in 17 hours, who can run 205 miles in 39 hours, who can do all this crazy shit. But what they don't understand is they don't understand the journey that it took me to get to this point. And what got me to this point was I was just the opposite of what I am today. I was that guy who ran away from absolutely everything that I got in front of me. But not many people knew that. I had two people. Like the real me was like this very scared, insecure, stuttering, got beat up by his dad, all this kind of stuff. And then I built this fake person that walked around like my shit didn't stink, Right. Yeah, so that's kind of how I did it. And through a process of time, I realized that I was lying to myself and lying to people.
But it's a fascinating journey, though, because you are that guy now.
Right.
I mean, you genuinely are a legit badass.
Right.
And at one point in time, you were a legit terrified person.
Yes.
So what was the process? Like, how did you step forth?
Well, it's a long process.
Right.
my dad beat the shit out of me when I was growing up. I was the first black baby born in this hospital called Miller Fillmore in Buffalo, New York. My dad owned skating rinks, he owned bars, he ran prostitutes from Canada to Buffalo, New York. My dad was a big-time pimp, big-time, anything bad about a person, big-time hustler. He was American, you know that movie with Denzel Washington? Mm-hmm. He was that, but not that bad.
Right.
You know, he wasn't that big, but that's what it reminds me of. He was that kind of guy. And beat the shit out of me, beat the shit out, out of my mom. There was an incident one time when my mom got knocked out on top of the stairs, and he dragged her down the stairs by her hair. And at 6 years old, I'll never forget this. In my mind, I was always afraid. My whole life I was afraid, but I had this fucking voice, this conscience that would always be battling me, saying, hey, you got to get up and do something. I didn't want to do shit. I was just afraid, but that voice would force me to get up. And my dad, I tried to beat him up, whatever, at 6, and I get my ass kicked. So this went on for several years. And I have a big-time learning disability because my dad didn't believe in us going to school. So my dad, it was about the business, the skating rink and the bar. So the skating rink opened about 7 o'clock at night. And this is the time I was able to walk. So about 4, 5, 6 years old, 8, 9. And I would go to this, skating rink at 7 o'clock at night. And I worked the skating rink until 10 at night. And then we would scrape the gum off the floors and we cleaned the whole skating rink up. And then my dad had an office. And my brother and myself would sleep in the office. And my mom would go upstairs and work the bar until 3 o'clock in the morning. And then they cleaned the bar up. So after all that shit was done with, going to school rarely happened. So when I went to school, I was all kind of, my learning disability. I had social anxiety. I was just a jacked up kid from living in this tortured home. From the outside looking in, we lived in an all-white neighborhood. And then we would travel to the ghetto of Buffalo, New York, where the skating rink was at. So we worked around mostly blacks, and I lived around mostly whites. But no one knew what was going on in that house on 201 Paradise Road. It's crazy. But my mom got courage to finally leave him when I was about 8 years old. We moved to a small town in Brazil, Indiana, and that's when the real war started for me. And Brazil, Indiana is a small town. Great people, a lot of great people. And I say that because a lot of people get offended. And I'm going to get to the point why they get offended. There was about maybe 10 black families at about 10,000 people in the town. And in 1995, the KKK marched in the 4th of July parade. So this was not everybody was racist. There was a lot of good people. Some of the best people I knew was there, but there was also a lot of racism there. So me being one of the few black kids in that, in that area, it kind of haunts you. I had stuff on my notebook, nigga, we're going to kill you. On my Spanish notebook, they had that on my car, nigga, we're going to kill you. This is early 90s. And so even though I showed it didn't hurt me, it was jacking me up. So all the insecurities I had when I was a kid with my father, I moved into this area here, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And the shit haunted me. And that voice that I talked about, it kept talking louder and louder and louder, but I was doing nothing about it. And I decided to make moves. And I cheated all through school. And it's kind of humbling to talk about my stories sometimes, and it's also embarrassing, but it's real. It's who the fuck I am. It's what I am. It's what created me. And copied from the 4th grade to my junior year in high school on every assignment. And I wanted to get in the military, wanted to join the Air Force, and the guy gave me an ASVAB test. It's like a watered down SAT. And I couldn't copy on it because the guy beside me had a test A, I had test B. The guy on my right had test C. So I looked to copy on this test and I couldn't copy on it. So I got like a 20. And I wanted to be an Air Force pararescueman. It's guys that jump out of airplanes and save down pilots. It's a special operator in the Air Force. And my score was so horribly low that I'd retake it again. And he said, hey, I got like an 18 the second time, even worse. I need to get a 50 out of a 99. And so my mom and I, for a while, we lived in the government subsidized apartments, $7 a month, and also food stamps. And we slowly moved up to a $230 a month place. But at the time, we were pretty poor. But my mom afforded enough money for me to go to see a tutor one hour a week. So for 4 hours a month, and I had 6 months to study for my last test. I could only take the ASVAB test 3 times. And I studied my ass off and passed it. And I got in the Air Force and realized there was more things in front of me. I was afraid of the water, terrified of the water. And I learned how to swim. But what gets everybody in this training, in all special ops training, is the water confidence, where they try to pretty much drown your ass. All of our lives we've been breathing, and they take that from you, and they want to see how comfortable you are in the water. And there's only 1% African Americans in special operations. And I didn't know anything about African, like a lot of them are negative buoyant, which I am, because of the bone density. I struggled But 6 weeks into the program, there was about 25 guys left out of about 150. I was there, and I didn't go to sleep for 6 weeks of the program. And I wanted to quit so badly, but I quit everything in my life. I copied through school. I wanted to prove people wrong. And so here I am in this Air Force program, starting to get a little more confidence, but this water was kicking my ass. And 6 weeks into the program, the doctor gave me a blood test. It was I have sickle cell trait, not the anemia, but it still killed people. But so they put me out training for a week. And when you go from being very uncomfortable in that water situation, and then now you're comfortable, and I'm sitting back watching the guys drown. I'm not part of the activities anymore for this week. I didn't want to get back in that damn water again. So the fear overcame me, and all my insecurities from my dad, from this small town, from everything started coming back. And even though no one knew how fucked up I was, kind of create this other person who was tough, I lived with this shit all the time. So me not wanting to go back in that water, the doctor called me back up. I thought I was going to get like a medical kick out of the military. So no quitting for me. They'll kick me out so I can have some pride. The doctor said, no, man, we could put you back in the training. And I was like, fuck. But after a week, I'm like, you know what? I missed 1 week. There's only 3 weeks left. There's a good chance, I could tough this shit out and go on. But I went back to the CO and the commanding officer of the program, and the sergeant said, hey, you got to start from day one because you missed, that week of training. And I broke. I couldn't imagine going back through that again. So I made up a lie. And I said, man, the sickle cell thing is really scaring me. It was the fucking water. It wasn't sickle cell. And I pretty much quit. Even though they gave me a medical, I quit. So from the age of 19 to the age of 22, I went and did a job called TAC-P, where you control fast movers behind enemy lines. Cool job, but there's no water. I was afraid of the water, so I avoided it. And I gained 125 pounds in that time frame. I went from 175 to almost 300, to 297 was my heaviest. And I started finding things that was comfortable. And the more things I found comfortable, the more uncomfortable my mind was. Because that voice I was telling you about, it always was there. I was just trying to avoid that conscience. I wanted to be left alone from that conscience, and it wouldn't leave me alone. So I got out of the Air Force, and I started working for a job called Ecolab, where you spray for cockroaches at 24, and spraying at different steak and shakes, Red Lobster, whatever, from 11 o'clock at night to 7 o'clock in the morning. And what changed, I came home and watched this Discovery Channel show, Class 224. I came home from Steak and Shake. I sprayed it down last, get a big old large 42-ounce shake, walk across the street and get a box of mini donuts from 7-Eleven, and I would drive home for 45 minutes. This big old fat guy who, I worked out, but I was fat. I didn't run, didn't PT, I just hit the gym. So driving home, turn the TV on, and what comes on, Discovery Channel show, and that's where everything changed for me. I was taking a shower, I walked out, heard these guys, and I watched the show. And it made me reflect big time on the piece of shit that I am, and I'm exactly what people said I was going to be. So
what was on this show that really struck home?
It was, I saw these guys going in the water, so I was terrified of it. I mean, I can't even express. Have you ever had a big fear? And I know a lot of fighters have fears and stuff like that, but they get over them. But a lot of us have these fears that you just don't want to fucking face. And I have a lot of them. I had a lot of them. And that's what created the person who's in front of you today. And we'll get into that. But just a scared bitch is what I was. But I was watching these guys going through Hell Week, Class 224. And these guys ringing the bell, quitting, dropping their helmet down, rolling out. A lot of guys just leaving. And it made me reflect on my fears, my insecurities. And I saw real men, what I thought were real men who were staying, who were overcoming adversity, who were overcoming all these different things that I had blamed so many fucking people in my life, my dad, my mom for not being there. When I was 14 years old, my mom was gonna get remarried to this great guy. He got murdered. And then I moved back to that small town in Brazil, and everybody was to blame. My learning disability, my skin color, me being everything. And so I sat there for a while, and I was like, man, I got it. No one's going to fucking come to help me. No one's going to fucking come to help me. It's fucking me against me, period. And so I had to man up, and I said, the first thing I got to start doing is facing every fucking fear I have, no matter what the fuck it is, man. And these things would keep me up at night. No one, people who are hearing this shit, they will never really understand and grasp when you face these things and so many things, how they keep you up and haunt you at night.
I think there's a lot of people out there that know what you're talking about.
I mean, and so that's what it did. And I had two options: to either be that 300-pound guy who sprayed for cockroaches and made $1,000 a month, and at 24 years old, knowing when I'm 50 fucking years old, I can reflect on this and think about what guy I never became, or I can totally just sack it up and fail and fail and fail until I succeed. So I started calling recruiters up. I said, I'm gonna go be a fucking Navy SEAL. And every recruiter, so there's a weight and height, so the weight and height limit to get in the military. And I was 6'1" and 297. And I had prior service, which was a big deal. So I called all these recruiters up and all of them said, hey, how tall are you? Blah, 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 blah. They got into conversation to see if I was even qualified. And by the time I got to my weight, phone would hang up pretty much like, hey, you know what? Call somebody else, try to get in the reserves. So I tried to get in the reserves. And I called this guy named Steven Salgio, recruiter, up. And he said, hey, come on in. He saw me, put me through the weight standard, all this other stuff. And to get into the class I had to lose 106 pounds in less than 3 months. So I was like, fuck that, I can't do that. I grabbed my chocolate milkshake and went back to Ecolab. I'm going back to work, man. This is my life. So in this job, you're looking for cockroaches, looking for rodents and stuff like that. And this next morning or this next night, I went to work and I don't like cockroaches too much. I hit the mother load of cockroaches. And this restaurant got full of cockroaches and rodents and everything else. And I sat there and I said, this is my life. I said, this is my life. You are exactly who the fuck, this is it. And I said, this ain't gonna be it for me. So in that restaurant, I quit my job, left my canister in that restaurant, my spray canister, got back in my Ecolab truck, and I went home. And I started working out like somebody, I became the most obsessed person on the planet Earth. And I had to invent a guy that didn't exist. I had to invent a guy that can take any pain, any suffering, any kind of judgment, be called nigger, be called whatever the fuck in the world, and be able to stand in the fucking room and say, go fuck yourself. I had to build this callous mind, and I built it through suffering. I built it through downright fucking just crushing myself. If it was raining outside at 3 o'clock in the fucking morning, if it was snowing, the first instinct is don't go out there and do shit. My instinct was, we gotta fucking go out there. Anything that was fucking horrible in my life that I would normally say no, that was inhumane to most people, I had to go do it. And I started callousing my mind at this point in my life. And I lost the weight. And I went back to recruiter. I got into that class and I went through 3 Navy SEAL Hell Weeks in 1 year. Only guy to ever be in 3 Hell Weeks in 1 year, to my knowledge. The first one I didn't make it through. The next 2 I did. And that I just didn't. I didn't stop anymore from there. And I started realizing through this process that the fucking mind is what you created. And I started opening different doors that I didn't think were even there, that I didn't think even existed. And the more doors I opened up, the more I started realizing that my potential is damn near endless. And it changed my whole mindset. So I went from David Goggins and I created Goggins. And that journey is a priceless journey that is hard for me to even explain to people because it sounds so quick and easy. Like I lost this weight and I went through 3 Hell Weeks. I went to Ranger School, went to Delta Force selection, whatever it is. It was brutal. It's a brutal journey every fucking day. And everybody goes, well, are you happy? If anybody knows my life story, and I'll try to give you just a snippet of it, where I'm at today is in front of Joe Rogan telling you my life. To get through where I became, to get through where I'm at now, there's nothing but pride I have for myself that I can't really show people. Because I have this face that they see like, are you happy? What's wrong with you? I'm driven, I'm obsessed. And that's what you see. That's it.
People need to hear this story. This is an exciting story for people because there's a lot of people out there that feel trapped and they feel stuck and they feel like they can't do anything. This is who they are. And you're a guy who felt that exact same way, but figured out how to not be that person and be a person that you would admire. What were the first steps? Like you had some slips before, right? Because you quit because of the water thing.
Right.
But then when you went back the second time and you decided you're going to lose all that weight and you quit that job, was it just straightforward from there? Or were there some days where you just failed and then you picked it back up again?
So my first run, when I decided to lose the weight, I was, like I said, 297. I was about 32% body fat. And my idea was to run 4 miles for my first run. I didn't know how bad it's gonna fucking hurt me. I used to run before I was fat, and I was like, fuck it, I can do this. I ran a 1/4 mile and walked home. I walked home and sat on my couch and cried. I went to my mom's house, who was about maybe 20 minutes down the road, and cried and get in her couch saying, man, I can't fucking do this shit. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I just got somebody pregnant. My life was just fucked. I was making $1,000 a month. My rent was $810 a month, and my mind just kept fucking with me. And kept fucking, you're not good enough, man. This isn't for you, man. These guys are the baddest motherfuckers on the planet Earth. You're not that. And what it was, and it's kind of funny, I was obsessed with Rocky 1 in particular. And when I was a kid, I'd come home every day and I watched this fucking show, Rocky. And I would fast forward with the little VHS tapes to round 14. Round 14 fucked me up like nobody's business. Why? This song came on. When I broke the pull-up record, I listened to the song for 17 hours. It's 2 minutes and 13 seconds. And I'm able to visualize and dream like nobody's business. And I know that I can create a vision that many people can't. And I work for it. So the vision I had was when Apollo Creed beat the fucking shit out of Rocky, beat the shit out of him, he kept fighting. He was a dumb fighter, couldn't read, that was me. Couldn't read, couldn't write, just punchy, everything about him. And Rocky Apollo beat the shit out of him. He was in that corner, everybody was saying, stay the fuck down. And him getting up, Apollo Creed raised his arms up in the fucking air, turned around, thought he won the fight. He turns around and sees this guy getting up, and it was the face of Apollo Creed that changed my life. The face of Apollo Creed. It was like, just by that motherfucker getting up, not winning, just by him getting the fuck up, Apollo Creed was champ. He's the best. Rocky had taken his soul, had literally taken his soul. His head goes down. He looks at him like, what the fuck are you? I wanted to be that, not Rocky. I wanted to be the guy that people looked at. I don't care if you liked me or didn't like. I don't care. But it said this motherfucker is gonna keep coming after whatever the fuck is in front of him. I wanted that. I wanted that worse than anything in the world. So I kept picturing me falling down and getting up, and every motherfucker that called me nigger, I was dumb. Even myself, I wanted to feel something besides defeat. I wanted to just go the distance. And that going the distance pushed me to a point of where now I go way past the distance.
So you go the first day, you run a quarter mile, and then you walk back home, and
right.
you're upset. How do you move forward?
So basically what I did was I came home, and I had a chocolate milkshake. I sat down, and I gave up. I said, this ain't gonna fucking happen, man. I could lose 106 pounds, and I can't even go a quarter of a fucking mile. I started being able to take negative shit and be happy. And this whole, I say what if a lot, it sounds corny and it sounds weak, but it's true. One of the recruiters said there's not many black Navy SEALs. Matter of fact, I was the 36th African-American SEAL in history. It's in over 70 years. Because of the fucking water, you know?
Right.
People get mad at me. It's fucking true. Just get over it. And so I was like, man, what story would it be if my fucking fat, dumb, lying to be friends with people, insecure ass can overcome this shit? And that what if mentality, like that dreamer mentality just would always fuel me. It would just fuel me, man, what if I can be a SEAL, man? What if I can go from running a quarter of a fucking mile, now I run 205 miles. What if I can go? What if I can go? And what if, how would that feel if I'm graduating? Because I'll never forget at the graduation thing I was talking about, 224, like the video I sat down and watched. This commanding officer stood up and he said to the graduation, guys who are graduating buds, like 18 of them, he said, we live in a society where mediocrity is often rewarded. And he went on to say something about these men detest mediocrity. And I wanted to be a man that detests mediocrity. It got me in a lot of trouble in the SEAL teams and going forward in my life because I started looking down on people for not going hard as fucking shit. And I started to create different things, but that's for a different day. But I just believe that, my whole mind
This is not, I think this theory is fun as fuck and I love it. But I don't know if it's true.
Like, people ask me, like I think one of the most taboo things to talk about today is you could talk about fucking or drug, you could talk about anything, but when anyone goes, hey, where's your spirituality at? Or what? It's like a conversation stopper,
Well,
right?
you know why? Because anybody who asks it like that is annoying.
But
where's your spirituality at right now, David? David, that's like
it's in my blue asshole
someone's
right now.
henpecking you.
But
what are you doing, David?
But I've never asked you that. What is your thoughts on God? I did it. I went there.
Well, considering we're having a podcast, it's very different than someone just bringing it out of nowhere. I am not an atheist. I've never been an atheist. I've never been someone who says, I know there is no God.
Right.
What I have been someone who has said that a lot of the stories that are in a lot of the religions clearly have the hand of man on them. There's clearly some description that implies things that are okay to do because of the cultural values of people that lived 3,000, 4,000 years ago, whenever they wrote this stuff. Clearly, it condones slavery, it treats women as second-class citizens. There's a lot in these words that clearly have the hand of man. But there's also some inherent deep wisdom and a moral scaffolding that would make the world a better place. And almost all of them There's something there that gives people structure and discipline and connects them in a community of like-minded people who believe the same thing. I think there's a great value to that that's underappreciated by people who call themselves atheists. I think there's also a great value in, if you truly believe you're living your life and you're going to be a good person, you're going to go to heaven, you will have that energy through your life. You will be carrying the belief, and it will actually aid you in your life. And that if you think this is pointless, it's all just existential angst and it's all chaos, like, you live better if you believe that this is all for a better purpose and this is all a part of a God's plan. That might be true. It might not be true, but you live better if you think that way. You can do that and still look at facts and reality, and you don't have to be ideologically captured by some writing that was written down thousands of years ago.
Right.
But you are better off if you believe that this is all for a greater good.
Love.
Yeah, and that's
Love.
probably what God really is.
God is love.
And what love is at its most pure is a force of creation, a force of like adhesion and bonding of human beings. And we know the opposite. The opposite is what's happening right now in Ukraine. That's the opposite. The opposite is...
That's hate.
Yeah, that's murder and fucking whole-scale murder. It's wild chaos. I mean, war is hell. It's the worst thing that people do. And that exists at the same time on Earth with some of the best people enjoying some of the best times together. While you are with your family and you are with your friends and people come over your house and you have dinner and you're laughing and having a good time, on some part of the world, someone's drinking out of a puddle. You know?
Yeah.
In some part of the world, someone's in an apartment building that just got hit by a missile.
Yeah.
You know, it's all happening simultaneously, but we only have the ability to understand what's happening to us. And we kind of think these things, we know these things are out there because we watch TV and we watch the news, but we don't believe it. It's like, it's not even like there's people that are calling for like war in Ukraine. Like, you don't even know what you're saying. Like, you don't even know what that feeling is. If you knew, that would be the last thing you would ever want to happen.
I fucking love you, man. Like, I love you.
I love you too.
And you too, Jamie, you fucker. Like, I'm not gonna leave you out of this. And wow, like, I am part of the thing. I love what you just said right now. And part of like the way I pray is creativity. Like, when I make something, that's how I interpret prayer. And what you talked about is like this belief. It's faith, right?
Yeah.
So, and part of why a lot of things I've done in my life, people have accused me of being suicidal, right? They're like, why are you going into MS-13 territory? Why are you going to the Congo? Why are you going to Bosnia? Why are you going to places that are in conflict? And part of that is like, I like it when it hurts. And it's just like, I'm attracted towards darkness, or I was. And part of that is just, I don't believe. Like, I watch the news, I watch something and someone tells me, I've been to every state in America, right? Like, most Americans haven't done that. And is there unrest? Is there racism? Yes, there is. But when you try to say everything, like try to make it binary and everything in like black or white, like, I've had an amazing time in Texas so far, right? And all these places that are considered racist, yeah, I've experienced that also. But even when I go to like Atlanta at a black mall, I went to the wrong mall and everyone's yelling shit to me. If I could find one kid and be like, hey, why are you calling me that shit? And then I bond with him, in that moment, I'm just with him. I've used love. He didn't run away from me. Like, him and all of his friends were doing this. They were like, and I was like, this is like 20 years ago. And I'm like, oh, fuck, dude. And they were yelling. They're literally yelling. You came to the wrong mall, bro. Wrong, you know? And I was like, oh, shit. And I felt threatened. I felt like, oh, shit, like something's about to happen. And this is 1999 or something, you know? And so, you know, because of the religious abuse that I was raised in, and it's crazy because most of the mental health institutions or rehabs I've been into, you've heard about sexual abuse, physical abuse. You've heard of those abuses. I had never heard the word sexual abuse or religious abuse. And I'm like, it's disproportionately a lot of Orthodox Catholics, Orthodox Jews, hardcore Muslims, hardcore Christians, hardcore Mormons. Like, it's just that like organized, like, you have to be like this or else you're bad, creates so much shame and I'm like, fuck God, fuck religion, fuck all. But that's like, now I've gone the other side towards hate, and I'm like, I'm a loving person. Like I was telling you, like, it's not an accident that you're like the biggest podcast in the world. You're such a sweet, loving, you don't like get involved with all this other bullshit podcast drama that all of these other, like, you're just loving, you're lovable, you are love. And so I always go, I tend to be a hater. That I'm always pushed to like talk shit or be bitter and fuck everything sucks. And I need love to drag me back.